meeting back to order. I have a motion moved by Bev Cutting and seconded by Mark Rapley. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby returns to open session of Council at 7:01 p.m. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Yeah. Now, Mark, if you can let the minutes show that only those items that we went into closed session were the only items discussed, and that coming out of that we have given direction to legal counsel to respond to the concerns on the Ayton Mill Pond. Okay. There are no public information meetings this evening. So we'll go down to consent agenda. We have a motion moved by Rob Thompson and seconded by John Eccles. Be it resolved that items A1 to C1, inclusive, contained in Part 1 consent agenda be adopted. And further, that authorization be given for the actions to be taken as may be necessary to give effect to the recommendations contained therein. Any questions or comments on the consent? Councillor Lawrence.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The Normanby Recreation Advisory Minutes of April 15th, although it says draft in our agenda, the minutes that are attached are not marked draft, and there are several inaccuracies in there, and I would like to have those pulled. I think that they shouldn't come for our council's adoption until the committee has perused them and approved them. I bring them back in as approved minutes signed, and this was just the meeting that would happened on Tuesday night, and there are several inaccuracies there.
Okay. Councillor Lawrence has asked for those to be withdrawn. I believe, Mark, you've just got them sent to you as draft.
They're not marked draft, though.
Well,
usually they have draft on them. It says in the agenda, but not on the minutes.
Okay. And are we fine with having those ones pulled? Yeah. Okay. We'll go through that procedurally. And then Councillor Lawrence just wondered if you, for the secretary, can she, instead of sending them as draft, wait, or even for yourself to bring them as past minutes from the committee?
I think that because we are adopting them here, and if we adopt these, they're inaccurate.
Yeah, without having the information back, the background of what may or may not have, should be in those contexts. Very good. Okay. Anything else on the consent? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay. That should bring us down to communications from Mayor and Council. Does any councillors have any communications they would like to enlighten us with? Deputy Mayor Bell. John.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. As there's a few people along the table here know, there was a very successful hockey day in Durham held last Friday, of which there were games from all different groups, kind of a final wrap up to the hockey season, and an old rivalry was reincarnated again with the Mule Skinners against the Upper Varney team, and the Upper Varney team did score more goals and did prevail this time, but as history would have it, history will change, so there'll be another day, another time, another place.
Further comment to that, Councillor Marshall?
Well, it has happened in the past, so I doubt it'll
History shall continue on the way it should.
The other thing, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if anybody was watching TV on the weekend, a young local gentleman who has played a lot of hockey, played on the Canadian Allen Cup winning team for Dundas, Mr. Jeff McMillan. And Jeff's had a few games in NHL and had local Durham led and did very well in the Allen Cup. The Allen Cup, of course, is the standard for Canadian amateur senior hockey. Memorial Cup, junior hockey, Stanley Cup, of course, those are the big three. So congratulations to Jeff, and he's a true ambassador for Municipality.
Very good. Anybody else? Anything else? I did have the opportunity to participate in the Thundercats Hockey Day in Durham, and Councillor Marshall and myself were on the victorious side. So the democratic process, I guess, was in place, that it was 2 winners, and the deputy mayor was a loser. And enough said about that. Also, I was at the last council meeting, was remiss in not mentioning our West Grade Durham girls hockey team. We're going to be off to the provincial championships a couple of days after our last council meeting, and I forgot to send our best wishes to them and whatnot down there, but one of the teams came back with a medal. So the, I believe it was the Pee-wee.
Yeah, Donnie.
Yep, the Pee-wee girls from West Grade, and so congratulations to them out there on being victorious and ending the season by winning their last game, and that's always something that's pretty great for them. So very good. Also just like to say to council, I had the opportunity on Saturday to be up at Lamlash Hall and bring congratulations and give a certificate to Irvin and Joyce Ray on their 60th wedding anniversary. They celebrated in Lamlash on Saturday, so very good to them. And also participated on April the 8th, South Bruce Grey Hospital Association Alliance had a strategic planning session in Walkerton. They're going through a strategic plan for the 4 hospitals, Durham, Walkerton, Chesley, and Kincardine. So met with the consultant that's putting that together in their strategic plan, and looking forward to seeing how that's going to come out. And just wanted to remind, I think we have got everybody that is willing to go or has a chance to offer to go. The Warden's Forum is on Thursday starting at 4 o'clock in suburbia, not in downtown Drumore, but at the Drumore Presbyterian Amos Church in the basement. The Warden is having it there. 2 very good speakers, one on tourism and I believe the other one on Aboriginal, yes, yeah, Aboriginal consultation. So look forward to hearing from both those individuals going forward to that. So I believe that we've got good representation going forward to that on Thursday. So look forward to that. Anything else? Carol?
I just want to remind people the Newstead Recreation Craft Show is Saturday, May the 3rd. If you're out and about, do come. It's always a good one, and it's their big money maker. And just for information, I keep telling you how well the roller skating's doing there. 2 weeks ago there were 170 roller skating, and a week ago there was 140. So it's amazing. They're coming from Sauble Beach and Wyerton and just everywhere, so it's great. And there's 80 members now in the pickleball. So
you forgot into Wellington County. I was talking to an individual the other day. They have friends that come up on a weekly basis from Guelph to roller skate. So there are lots of pairs still left. They don't rent out all of them every night. A number of those people bring their own skates, so there are a number of pairs there if you want to rent and participate.
something that you may not be aware of, but the missionary church in Port Elgin used to be at the old arena. They bought the old arena and they have their church there, and they did have roller skating, and they discontinued that about 2 years ago, and they gave their skates to Newstead. Now, not all of them were good, but
Functional.
we came out of, I think we got 40 pair that were in really good shape, like new, and then the ones that weren't usable, they went to the Lions and they took them apart for the aluminum. So,
Oh.
yeah, so it was kind of a nice gift.
Very good. I do have one more thing, and thank you, Mark, for reminding me. The Saugeen Conservation and Grey Sauble and North Bruce Peninsula that make up our source water protection committee have a workshop, municipal workshop coming up. There's two, one on Wednesday, May 7th in Owen Sound at the Bayshore Community Center, and the other one on Friday, May 9th at the Walkerton Community Center in the upper auditorium at the arena in Walkerton. Discussion on topics, municipal roles and responsibilities, land use, risk management, and enforcement responsibilities on those two, and they start at 9:30 and go until 3:30. And then workshop 2 is on May 22nd, and it's being held in Chesley. The discussion topics there are education, prohibition, obligations, reporting requirements, and the municipal bylaws. And hopefully they'll have another one coming out, which is always the real good one, on future implementation, funding, and provincial grants. You think it's going to be discussed there? I think it should be the absolute discussion there. So at that second one in Chesley.
So just let Joanne or I know.
So if you want to go, please let Joanne or Mark know, because I would like to have some participants there for that, if at all possible. Okay. No other discussions, other communications? Very good. We have no delegations tonight. Anything arising from the previous meeting? I think pretty much everything's on here. So then we'll go down to staff reports. The first one we have, Carrie, welcome this evening. Thank you for being here. And on Carrie's report, the first one is on the, how do I say it, the accounts. And is there any discussion or comments on the accounts? Deputy Mayor Bell. John, go ahead.
Thank you, Kerry. This is more a question for Ken, just a little information, Ken. I see in Durham in the wintertime there was 2 water main breaks that showed up on the accounts. There are 2, and they're for about $10,000 between the 2 of them. One's about 46 and change, and the other one's 5,200. One on Albert Street, and I can't remember the other one is. When we do a water main, fix, is staff time all in that bill that's in there? Is that staff time, equipment time, gravel, say, extra parts, everything all combined, or how's that break down?
Yeah, what you're seeing there, we have a contract with Cedarwell, and they provide the staff, equipment, aggregate, everything, but Steve goes and puts the clamp on, of course, because he's licensed, but they provide everything else, yeah. Traffic control, everything.
Okay, they bring everything, so it's all their...
Water pumps, like
Okay.
whole works, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the accounts before I introduce? I had one, Carrie, and I apologize for not, should have tried to get it to you earlier today. I had to deal with, there's about $450 on to Owen Sound dispatch from Grey Highlands Fire. Do we pay dispatch?
Yeah, for the section that the Markdale Fire covers in our municipality, it's outside of our contract with Grey Highlands, so we are responsible for that section of our residents in that area.
Okay, very good. Okay. Any other questions on the accounts we've had ahead of us there? Seeing none, I have a motion moved by John Eccles and seconded by Rob Thompson. Be resolved that the Director of Finance Treasurer be authorized to pay the accounts presented as voucher number 7, 2014 of the Municipality of West Grey in the amount of $487,044.07. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Very good. Okay, on to the next one. Gary, your notice for fees and charges?
Yeah, according to our notice bylaw, we need to give notice if we intend to pass any changes to that. There's some of the recreation staff are wanting to change some of the recreation rates, so I'll have a summary, provided you're willing to entertain that. Otherwise, we don't. But I'll have that for the committee of the whole with some of the details of it. But this would give notice that the intention to amend that bylaw, should you want to proceed with any changes. Recreation ice rates and haul rates in particular is what one of the rec ones was looking at.
Any comments? Direction for Carrie? 2% or 22%?
Yeah, he was looking at probably about a 5%. I don't know if you're thinking of that across the board, or if you want further review done. We did a review 2012, did some comparisons as far as rates with other areas. So I don't know if you wanted to go through that all again, or whether just a straight increase across, but if there's any direction on that, we can prepare it as indicated.
Carol?
Well, I certainly think we need to look at it for the ice rentals and the halls. I don't know that we need to do an in-depth like we did 2 years ago, but I just take a look at our utilities. And, we need to take a look at that 5% or whatever. And obviously, our goal was to have them both the same, so we need to look at Durham and Normanby together.
Okay. Any other comments? Thoughts on what we're looking at there? And I believe that's kind of the thought from Tom's perspective as well too, was just to stay there with rate of inflation or cost of living, keeping it that it doesn't fall behind too far. Okay. All right. Next one was on mileage rates, Carrie. And just for information, it really hasn't changed. Anybody want to comment? Last couple of weeks, the roller coaster's been up and down. Next quarter. I thought gas prices were high here, but my sister and husband and the nephews were down for the weekend, and they just couldn't believe their great fortune of having gas at $1.30 a liter, because in Espanola when they left it was $1.43. And my brother-in-law had been a little further north, up past Wawa a week ago, and he says, well, it was $1.46 there, so I guess it's kind of in perspective, $1.30, but still a little crazy. Okay. Any other questions? Carrie, any questions for Carrie at this point in time? Straightforward. Okay. All right. Thank you, Carrie.
Any questions on the tax rate
bylaw? Did you want to make comment on any bylaws that are coming up, Carrie?
I have the tax rate bylaw. It's based on our budget that was approved back in January, but we have all the rates down. So that's brought forward for your consideration. But it is based on those original budget figures that we had passed. So if there's any questions.
Numbers seem to be embedded in everybody's mind, so we're going to leave them that way. Carrie may leave before we get to that one, so if you've got one, Mark says he doesn't want anything to do with it as far as answering the questions go. I think staff did a wonderful job of getting the budget to where it was, and a very good job on that. Okay. Fine, thank you, Carrie. On that part. Ken, you want to talk about flood or road conditions out there?
Yes, certainly things are better this week than they were the last couple of weeks, but we did have considerable flooding on roads, mainly in former Bentic, where the Saugeen come over its banks on Concession 4 and Allen Park Road, both sides of Mulock Road and Concession 4. Then there's some minor flooding there was some minor flooding in former township of Normanby and also Glenelg, but the rivers receded considerably in this last couple of days, and it's pretty much back to normal. So I believe there is one area in Glenelg up on the baseline north of Great Road 12, but that's an annual thing that and Tim was saying, or our road supervisor was saying this morning, it's receded considerably too over the weekend, so they're able to drive through it, but it is still a bit of water on the road. But along with the flooding, we certainly have the gravel roads with the frost coming out and the wet winter or snowy conditions along with the rain certainly caused a lot of rough gravel roads, and they've been working on them with the graders as much as they can whenever the weather permits. So they're all out again today, and any place they have been, you can certainly see a difference. It's starting to shape up. It just takes a bit of time to get around to them all. If we can get a dry week, it'll make quite a difference.
Haven't had any dust problems yet with the sunshine from the last couple of days?
No, I haven't had any problems with dust, but certainly they're starting to firm up. The frost is coming out, and it's certainly better than it was.
Yeah, absolutely. And still give us, I know I sent a letter out, council had asked for a letter to be sent out, which certainly was sent out a week or more ago to all the depots, and congratulations or extreme thanks to all the depot workers out there that for cleaning up and keeping the roads open through numerous storms that we saw throughout the winter. So still on behalf of all of us, thanks for what they do out there to keep us moving on West Grey roads. Okay, so no other questions on our roads update. Staff training update. Ken?
Yes, I've just provided council just an update on what we're doing for staff training for this spring. We always encourage our staff to attend as many functions in training as possible, and I've listed a few of them here that the recreation and public works staff are going to attend in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So, and then we do have the local one here at the Ayton County Yard that the Grey County Public Works Association is hosting, and they're also going to provide some financial support to that one. So it's very handy for the West Grey Public Works staff to attend that one. So we have a number of our staff going over to there.
John? Deputy Mayor Bill?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Ken, quick question. It says here 5 will be attending that, recognizing there's, I don't know how many full-time do they each go turnabout or once every 2 years? Is that mandatory, or that they go to one of these every couple of years, or how's that work?
You're talking about the Guelph?
I'm talking about the one in Ayton.
The 5 or the 4, that'd be Tim and Steve as road supervisors, and the 3 lead hands from the rural.
Okay, so the other guys, do they ever go to these things or not? Or
Yes,
just
yep.
Okay.
Yep. Quite often more on the equipment side of it.
Yeah.
Equipment training or whatever.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah, this is traffic control, so.
perfect.
Is there any update, Ken, on the Grey County truck rodeo? How's that coming along, or participation of any of the council members in that?
It was scheduled for, I believe, for last week, and it got canceled, so there'll be another date coming. We'll certainly inform the mayor and council members that they're able to participate in that this year if they wish to.
Everybody's got their head down right now. They must be thinking about it on their programs to see. Well, I'd certainly like to see. Councillor Eccles, it's safe truck driving that they're looking for. That's what they'll be judged. That's what you'll be judged on. They were going to try and offer that to some of the council members to give an idea of what it takes to sit in a plow truck these days to drive. So hopefully it will be possible to get that. Yeah. I don't know whether we get a wingman or not. Okay. Anything else, Ken?
Our Deputy Mayor Bell mentioned a couple of water main breaks that were on the voucher. Well, we've had about 5 more since then. They repaired 3 on Friday, and I believe there's one earlier in the week too. So, and they also noticed some ice in the water mains. So, whether that's causing some of the breaks or not, we're not sure. But they got the water system under control here again Friday. There was 3 breaks, and it was we were losing a lot of water. Nothing. The system was certainly safe, but it was just causing the pumps to work a little extra hard to keep the reservoirs full. So Steve had the Cedar Well come in, and they worked on in the evening to get the 3 of them fixed. But the use of water has certainly receded since then. It's back down to normal. And, but we did have a number of breaks. We've also noticed that on the main Gareth access south of the main corner, that the water main is definitely starting to show deterioration, and we're going to have to do some long-term planning there on the 2 blocks, the business blocks there, to upgrade the water system. We'll have to get the sewer cameraed and see what kind of condition it's in too. So that'll be something to consider. We'll be shutting down the business area for main traffic through for a little while if we tie into that, but I think it's going to be necessary because the water main's not in good shape.
Okay. How many households do we have out there that are still operating on a alternate watering system at this point in time?
We're down to 5.
Down to 5?
Yeah, every day there's 1 or 2 that come off the list. So
Loosening up?
yes.
Well, it has been very difficult, certainly in Durham, but I think other municipalities maybe even more have been harder hit than what we have been. And surprisingly, I guess we didn't. Did we have any in Newstead at all?
No, we've never had a leak in a water main in Newstead since amalgamation.
A leak or a froze?
Either.
Shouldn't be talking about it, I guess. Very good. Okay. Anything else, Ken, or any other questions? Any questions for Ken at this point in time? Okay, very good. Thank you. Move on then. Mark, we've got a few on the clerks here. The first one is on the multi-municipal wind turbine working group. He's looking for direction on this. The draft resolution was there. Just wondered if anybody on that municipal group would like to speak. Deputy Mayor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this resolution's come forward after considerable, shall we say, debate. The biggest thing that was debated, when the municipal working group was set up, it was always said that any resolution to come forward needed to be the adoption of council before it would be forwarded on. So therefore, the group collaborated, put together the resolution, and now it comes before you with the idea that it gets our letterhead put on it to send on to the province. Okay, so that's where this came from, that's why it's here. I think it's a good step forward. Any lobbying efforts, though, wanted to be passed by council, so that's why it's here after it's been put together by the Win Group, okay?
Any other questions or comments on this? Which way are we going? Somebody want to introduce it then? Okay. Well, if you want to go and get a coffee, it might be the time. This one's a little long. Moved by John A. Bell and seconded by Rob Thompson. I have a motion. Whereas the provincial government is proposing to create new municipal accountability and transparency measures by giving the Ontario Ombudsman a role in investigating specific actions of municipalities and to conduct broader investigations if a broader systemic issue is identified. And whereas the Green Energy Act and the Green Economy Act 2009 removes decisions related to renewable energy projects from an open, accessible, timely, and efficient municipal planning process governed by the Planning Act and replaced them with the renewable energy approval process operated by the Ministry of Environment. And whereas the current provincial renewable energy approval process reviews are conducted in private using a process which, compared to the planning process that they replaced, have very limited public transparency to the local communities affected by their decisions. And whereas local review of applications submitted by proponents of wind projects after they are deemed complete by the Ministry of Environment indicate that the required assessments of the impact of the project on the community are missing significant information, inaccurate, or completely absent. And whereas the government set out a commitment in the February of 2013 throne speech to place renewable energy projects in willing host communities, but continues to ignore resolutions of 82 municipalities indicating that they are not willing to host wind turbine projects by issuing new approvals for turbine projects in these municipalities. And whereas municipalities are now receiving proposals from wind companies that contain substantial financial inducements to support projects in their community, even though similar inducements would be considered an inappropriate transaction in the context of other planning proposals. And whereas the legal procedures of the Environmental Review Tribunal that hears appeals of the Ministry of Environment decisions make it very difficult for local citizens to register local concerns as well as to follow the proceedings of tribunals that are largely conducted in Toronto offices according to a schedule that is not publicly available and constantly changing at the last minute. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey, 1, requests that the Ontario Ombudsman undertake a broad review of the systemic issues related to the current operations of the renewable energy approval process, and 2, recommend guidelines and standards for the process going forward to ensure that it operates with an appropriate level of integrity, openness, and transparency appropriate for high-profile provincial government initiative. And further, that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Energy, Multi-Municipal Wind Turbine Working Group, and local MPPs. Any questions? No. Councillor Lawrence.
I don't have a question. I would just hope that council would see fit to support that. I mean, we know from our own experience what this whole process is and what this farce of an ERT, the tribunal hearings are, and I think everything they've said is very true. If there's anything that could be done to help the municipalities, because obviously at this point the government of Ontario or the ministry is not working for the people of Ontario. Anybody that went to those to the tribunal hearings, you had to you really had to have a program to know who was the ministry and who was the Nextera, because they're in collaboration and working together. So I would hope we would support that. I can see nothing wrong. A lot of words, but I can see nothing wrong with them.
Okay, thank you, Carol. Any other comments? Have any comment on it? The only one, if I could from the chair, the only comment I'll give, a lot of great stuff in there. I'm just, from a municipal standard, I know that the municipality of West Grey has some concerns with the Ontario Ombudsman at this point in time and his investigation of some of our meetings and even some of his inquiries into investigating municipalities more, and some of our pushback that we're pretty open and transparent now. We don't need his, but in this context here we are calling for him to come in, and hopefully he will understand what we're asking him for and not get mixed up.
This, though, is asking that he do a review of the whole approval process, right?
That's correct, yep. And the open and transparency of the approval process.
Which there is right now.
No, there is not. You're exactly right. Yep. But as I said, the ombudsman sometimes gets off track sometimes on what you've asked them. Just leave it at that. Any other comments? Very good. Then I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Declare that carried. Very good. Now the next one, Mark, is the Multi-Municipal Wind Turbine Working Group has come up with another motion that they would like us to review and take under consideration. And this one is dealing with human health, which would be, and I'm reading through the material and whatnot, I believe it's the first one that has a direct correlation from wind turbine, the mechanisms itself working in a direct correlation to impairment of human health. And this is dealing with the human ear on infrasound.
Yeah, it's the infrasound, and it's the first that there is, it is causing health problems. I think it was the University of Washington, wasn't it, John?
Yeah, Dr. Salt is recognized
Salt,
in
yeah.
North America as the foremost expert in this field, and this is findings. This is very recent, very new.
And if I might, up to this point, I believe the ministry and the Chief Medical Officer of Health has denied any harm due to that infrasound. So we now have proof that there is harm.
Any other comments or questions before we introduce the motion on this new information? One thing that I found it was very difficult to try and figure out why individuals, it would be so quick. It said when they were in their house and they were close to the turbines and they were sick and dealing with vertigo and, you know, other injuries of that, or, you know, afflictions of that nature, and they would move away, and within half an hour, they were feeling fine, and coming back within a half an hour, it was, and according to this professor, what it is, or this research scientist, what it is it's the swelling that inside your ear that causes your balance and a number of other health issues. Some people it affects very predominantly, and some people it doesn't, but it does happen within 15 to 20 minutes of being in that area. So that has resolved some of the question as to how can it be that instantaneous type of thing. So he's come up with this, that's what it's happening. Anything else? Any other questions before I introduce the motion? Okay, seeing none, I will introduce. It's moved by Bev Cutting and seconded by Mark Rapke. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby supports the letter drafted by Keith Stelling regarding Alex N. Salt research on infrasound impacts from wind turbines, and requests supporting letters be forwarded to the contact list included in the letter. So we're supporting the work of Mr. Salt and the letter drafted, and asking Mark to send letters indicating our support of the research to the list, which I think includes from the Premier, most of the Cabinet, to all local MPs and MPPs, and I'm not sure how much further it goes down to elected officials.
It should go to the Chief Medical Officer of Health.
Yes, I think it was. I think she was, yeah. And our local, if we could even maybe our local medical officer of health, but, okay. There's a number of them on that list. Any other questions or comments? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Declare that carried. Okay. Now, Mark. What's the next one?
4-H club.
Next one was on something a little more local. It's dealing with the Hanover 4-H. There seemed to be a bit of a misunderstanding or clarification. Our 4-H club was called the Hanover 4-H Club, but predominantly Bentic, and it's always been run out of Bentic and run by Bentic residents. Rental at the Lamlash Hall. And what they're looking at is getting clarification there on the daily fee of the $5 daily rental for the 4-H club. And opinions. Deputy Mayor Bell.
Well, you can go a couple little different ways on this one, but I'm just wondering, first of all, 4-H clubs used to, when I was in 4-H, and that was a few moons ago, usually met once a month, and I'm just wondering how come we're up to 9 times before we realized that they had to pay this money. And I guess when did this start? In 2012? Okay, I guess I'm just not sure why that was, shall we say, let go that long. The other thing is, obviously the Louise Women's Institute get to use the hall, but they use it from Mondays to Thursdays. Obviously it's not used a lot in that time. The 4-H program could maybe operate on one of those other nights and maybe use the $5 fee. I wouldn't have a problem with that, but I'm not sure what we're going to do here about this one, because I'm not sure if we're just led in the right direction here.
Mark, Councillor Rapke.
Are we talking about $5 to rent an entire hall? Is that what they're asking for?
That's what they're asking for.
is that less than a sandwich and a coffee at Tim Hortons? I mean, I don't, $5 for several people for all, if they all put in $1, if there was 10 people, it'd be 10. It seems really, really, really low. I don't think the lights being turned on probably burns $5. So that just, I don't know what the going rate is, but so are we saying should it stay at $5, or are we saying it should be the same as the Women's Institute, or it should be the same fees as everyone else other than the Women's Institute?
Councillor Eccles?
Quite often, they don't even use the hall. It's there in case it rains, and then they have a backup to go to. So they may have a meeting there and use the parking lot or the lawn. And if they do use the hall, it's part of their 4-H thing that they go in and they do all the tidy work, clean everything all up, take the garbage with them, and leave it exactly as they found it. But they may or may not use the hall.
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, this is, for me, this is similar to when people come and ask for a reduced rate on any of the larger community halls that are $300 or $500, whatever we charge, is that they feel that they're the exception. And I know each group has their own thing, but they may or may not use it. If they don't use it, then they wouldn't have to pay, I guess would be the way to handle it. If they do use it, then they should. I think we just have to figure out an amount, and that's my question. And actually, we have the rates up for review at next committee of the whole, so it may be better to discuss it there. But the point is that I think in this hall, if memory serves, everyone pays a set rate except for the Women's Institute, and I can't remember why we arrived at that. But so the question is, are we going to be consistent in the way that we do things? When people come and ask for reductions at all the other halls, we say that we don't want to give exceptions because that opens the door to several exceptions. And I don't see this being really any different along those lines. You know, to be consistent with the way we've done things, at least the last few years here, I thought we would just charge the same rate.
I can maybe give you just a little bit of historical background. The 4-H club, this 4-H club in particular, has used the Lamlash Hall, I would say probably for 20 years, and in using it have always, that was one of the things that the former township of Bentig and West Grey leading up to this, it said for the youth education portion and whatnot, that was kind of our donation to the 4-H, and to keep the 4-H program and youth involvement in the community was, instead of being a donation monetary in our donation to groups, that they would use the hall at the $5 rental. I believe leading up to this it was free, and that the Women's Institute, because they'd put so much into the hall, and for the same reason historically had it that way and what they contributed. So instead of asking for a monetary donation on that Lamlash Hall, the Women's Institute and the 4-H, to support those two programs, that was what the municipality had done. Leading up to this, for their awards ceremonies and whatnot, they had always had that as free as well too, but in recognition they said, you know, using the kitchen and everything, then it would be, they would pay that, but on those off from Monday to Thursday, not on the weekend times, on those off times, that the 4-H, the Louise Women's Institute would get it at $100 for the 12 times a year, and that the 4-H club from Monday to Thursday when they were using it, and it's usually in the evenings, unless it's in a March break or something like that, they use it on Monday to Thursday as well too. But if it's going to be in prime time, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then they would pay the regular going rate. That's where it comes from. And they're asking that it be, if my memory serves me right, I was to the understanding that that's the way it was going to be incorporated into the bylaw, and I thought that that's the way it was in the bylaw. But in reviewing it, Whether that's the way it wasn't, or whether it was missed, we're not sure, but we want to get it clarified tonight. Maybe you're best to say, put it off until committee of the whole and make it then.
Don't we have to change the rates anyway officially?
Yes.
Probably,
Yep.
incorporate with that.
And that was part of what Carrie had brought forward here this evening, was changing those rates, so we could do that. Mark?
Certainly that discussion can be held. It might be a little problematic, given in my report that says, as of April 28th, that they would have used it a 9th time. If council wants the actual rate, which in essence, according to the bylaw, would be $75, and they were anticipating $5 per meeting, that might be a little problematic for council to request that, but that's council's directive.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to be careful here. I do know that last time we attempted or wanted to or looked at changing the rates in Lamlash, there was a bit of a backlash by the citizens, so I think we have to be kind of careful. I'm all for the 4-H people to be able to use all at a reduced rate, don't get me wrong. But I guess we need that clarification in there that says what nights or when or whatever. And I don't know, it'd be nice if we kept the bills paid up, I guess, as far as that goes. So we'll put it out. I would recommend also, if you want to table it to committee of the whole, I would be in favor of doing that.
John? Councillor
Well,
Eccles?
that will address the problem going forward, but we still haven't addressed what we're going to do with the 9 times they've used it in the last year and a half.
Well, I think they've already billed it for last year. This is just the 9 times this year, 2014.
During the week, too.
And it is during the week. These times that they have been, I believe, through the week, Mark? Yeah.
Okay.
Got that clarified. It's Monday to Thursdays that they use it. Can we address, have a further discussion, contemplation of it between here and committee of the whole, and then bring it up at committee of the whole? So we have time to do a little bit of investigation work of what we were thinking of doing in 2012, and very good. Okay. Committee of the whole will be next Monday, if I'm not mistaken, Mark? Yep. And the following council meeting will be May 7th, is it? 5th. 5th? So it's not that far away, not out of the season. Yep, the 5th. Okay? All right. Yes. Okay, so we can give direction that that will be deferred till committee of the whole, and when we get to take a look at all of those fees and charges at that point in time. Okay, any other discussion on that? Yeah, what are you here for? Okay, what, any other questions for Mark, our clerk? Seeing none, okay. Then I believe, Mark, we're down to bylaws. This evening we have a number of them, 30 through to 38. We don't have 30 bylaws. It's bylaw 30 to bylaw 38. So we're not going to be that long here. For some of the planning parts of those bylaws, Mr. Davidson, our contractor planner, is here. So if there are some questions on some of the bylaws, Ron, thank you for coming down this evening. Okay. Well, we'll go down to bylaws. The first bylaw, number 30, being a bylaw to on a lot severance or lot addition in Normanby, Dara. So I have a motion moved by John A. Bell, seconded by Rob Thompson. Be it resolved that bylaw number 30, 2014, being a bylaw to rezone lands described as Part Lot 64, Concession 2, former Township of Normanby, Dara, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the CEO, deputy clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. And this did go through the planning committee and has been recommended for approval. Any questions or comments on this rezoning bylaw? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That one I'll declare carried. Okay. Bylaw number 31 is bylaw entering into a development agreement with municipality and Cedarwell Excavating on a gravel pit in Goodnelg. I have a motion moved by David Mollison and seconded by Bev Cutting. Be it resolved that bylaw number 31, 2014, being a bylaw to enter into a development agreement between the municipality of West Grey and Cedarwell Excavating Limited, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the CEO, deputy clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Are there any questions or comments on this motion? Councillor Eccles. John?
Under section 1, covenants by the owner, subsection J, it says that no haulage truck leaving the site or returning to the site utilize Glenelg Road 23 south of Great Road 12. I understand the concept of that and what we're trying to do. We don't want them driving over the little bridge south of that, but is there going to be any concerns of a truck driving up Great Road 23 of Cedar Wells delivering gravel to someone that actually lives on that road, even though they don't drive over that little portion of road to get onto it?
Mr. Davidson? That's what we asked you here.
Right. How far south is the bridge?
It's in the first concession.
Okay.
Less than a kilometer.
Less than a kilometer. So there's a chance that someday somebody might want a load of gravel before you get to the bridge and this gravel pit?
No, there's no one lives between the corner and the gravel pit.
Okay.
But I'm talking about further up and down and I understand why that's in there. We don't want him driving down that portion of road, but how does he defend himself if someone complains that he's driving up and down Grey Road 23 with loads of gravel, and he may not actually have driven over that portion of the road?
You're saying if it was somebody else?
No, someone complains that one of Cedarwell's trucks are driving on Grey Road 23, even though he hasn't crossed that small portion of road that we don't want him to drive on.
Okay, I'm confused. Why would he drive down Grey Road 23? Sorry, John, it's late.
Someone lives south of the bridge and he drives all the way around the block and then
Right.
continues on down Grey Road 23.
Oh,
How
I
does
see.
he defend himself against someone phoning and complaining saying he's driving up and down Grey Road 23?
I suppose he would, whoever was phoning him on behalf of the municipality, he would say to that employee that he drove around. Where this comes from is a few years ago we had another gravel pit at that intersection, and that was an issue. And I remembered it, so I put it in the agreement because I didn't think we need to, it was an issue, a big issue before. It was very clear you can't drive across that bridge, so we stuck in it. So yeah, I guess if somebody thought that he had driven over the bridge and he hadn't, he would just say I didn't. And
Well, I'm just curious as to...
yeah, no, that's a fair question, but I think he'd have a fair answer if in fact he didn't drive on the bridge.
Okay.
Councillor Cunning. Bev?
I don't believe it's just the bridge either. I believe that that's an extremely populated road now. And so having those gravel trucks driving up and down them at excessive speeds like they were at one point is just not acceptable to the residents. So that's another part of it. Not when there's highways, on either side, just a few kilometers away that they can go down and utilize, so.
Yeah. Okay, so done. Councillor Marshall.
Just for clarification, why is this bylaw here coming before the next one? If the next one is there a reason for that?
The site plan agreement before the rezoning bylaw?
Yep.
I didn't set the schedule, but I don't think it matters either way. I would, if your council is not going to approve the rezoning in a couple minutes, then there's probably no sense in dealing with the site plan agreement, but based on I think what we learned last Monday at the public meeting, there seemed to be a consensus for the sorry, Mark.
Yeah, I don't think there really will be any force and effect if the development agreement is passed and the zoning is not, because the zoning, if it's not passed, won't permit the gravel pit. The reason for dealing with the development agreement prior to the zoning is if we didn't do that, if we did the zoning first, then we'd need to put a holding symbol on it until the development agreement is passed. We thought if it wasn't an issue, this would be a cleaner, easier way to go about it.
Yep. I knew there'd be a reason.
Okay. Any other questions on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? Declare that carried. Very good. Okay. Bylaw number 32 is dealing with the rezoning on the aforementioned piece, property with Cedar Well. I'll introduce the motion. It's moved by John Eccles and seconded by John A. Bell. Be it resolved that bylaw number 32, 2014, being a bylaw to rezone Part Lot 14, Concession 10, former Township of Glenelg, Cedar Well Excavating Limited, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and the CEO, Deputy Clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any questions or comments on the rezoning? Don. Councillor Marshall.
Just a comment that when this is passed in 30 seconds or less, this will change this property from a $500,000 property into a $5 million property. Just like that. So why are we not taxing that property as a $5 million property? And then every time they haul a load out of there, that comes off the assessment.
Well, I guess you would, one way I'm going to say this, it does go to commercial. I'm not sure it's industrial or maybe industrial. It's either commercial or industrial tax designation on it. So it is taxed at a different, at the portion that is being excavated or licensed. The other fact then is if you, you know, we deal with impact, and if impact is in agreement with your assessment, Don, that it's gone from $500,000 farm to a $5 million gravel pit, then I guess we've got to rely on impact, who know to the penny what property values are out there for our appraisal purposes, that they'll have it, that they'll find it the right, when it changes, they'll be reassessed at that time. So we'll see. I'm not sure whether the reassessment will come in 2015 or whether we'll see it in 2016. But there would be a reassessment done on it when the zone changes.
And have they been assessed the true cost, the true amount of their?
That, what is true is a definition of yours to theirs.
Well, there's 4.2 or 4.7 million tons of gravel in the licensed area.
Yes?
Even $1 a ton, which I believe Westgate was paying $1.25
at one point in time.
So it's a no-brainer that the aggregate is worth $5 million. So, and it's a no-brainer if they take 100,000 tons out in 2015, that assessment should come down that amount.
I'm not going to get into an assessment argument with you, but if 100-acre piece of property out there, you know, is in soybeans at 50 bushel per acre on 100 acres, apparently it would be, you know, not beyond, maybe soybeans isn't the right one, maybe it's corn, where in Iowa they grow corn on corn on corn. You've got 175 bushel to the acre here in Ontario at 100 acres. It's worth, let's even just put it at $5. Where do you extend that logic out to? Because you could grow it there for 30 years at that. Is that what it's worth? Or do you have to take on what the input costs are and what the harvest costs are, or what the input costs are to get a gravel pit and what it costs you to extract that gravel? But I do agree with you. The assessment will maybe have to go at that another way with impact on how they are assessing and putting a value on these gravel pits in our communities.
And this is basically where I'm going with this motion that's coming up later on tonight, is that we should be pushing a little harder, because this is just the start of the influx of gravel pits in West Grey and in Grey County. And they got the Aggregate Act open up just a hair. Let's get in there and make some, promote some changes that are realistic to the long-term planning of Grey County.
Okay. Any other comments on the rezoning? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried.
Discuss this one before the motion.
Okay. Next one is number 33, 2014, is a rezone lands in the former township of Bentic. Mark, before we introduce, do you want to make just a comment on this?
Yes, I did receive late this afternoon a letter from Weir Folds, dated today, and they are representing, their solicitors representing the Magwood family regarding the proposed bylaw number 33 of 2014. You do have a copy of that. I was able to get an email forwarded to our planner and contacted him by phone to see if he could perhaps take some time from his, I think, Easter family dinner to take a look before he attended the council meeting to perhaps look it over and maybe make a comment if possible. And perhaps it would be appropriate maybe to discuss the intent of the bylaw generally for council's information.
Council's information. Ron?
Sure,
what's
thank
on the
you.
seat?
I'll try to keep this brief. This is a project we've been working on for, at least 2 years. It's a joint venture between Hanover and the Municipality of West Grey, of course. It started when Hanover did a review a few years ago that indicated that they did not have enough land within their urban boundaries to meet their long-term goals to provide for development of specifically commercial use and a little bit of recreation or open space use. They approached the municipality here a couple years back and asked if we would form a working group, so the mayor and the mayors of the two municipalities and the CAO in Hanover and Mark, your clerk here, Hanover's building official, and we even had a fellow that was hired to be an impartial chair, if you will. And we've been going back and forth and working on this project. I've stood before this council on a couple of occasions discussing it. We're at the point where we're almost done in terms of it being approved at this level anyways. The official plan amendment to the County of Grey official plan was adopted last week, April 1st. And the next step is to implement the official plan by having zoning on the subject lands that would implement the official plan. And that's why we're here tonight. The intent is to have about 28 hectares of land brought into the highway commercial, or into a highway commercial zone. That's the intent of the zoning bylaw, and about 4 hectares for open space. Some of that highway commercial land is already developed, and we're making the assumption that it will stay in the existing or the same state that it's in now. So it's more like 24 hectares, I believe, that we're bringing into the highway commercial zone. We did work with the affected landowners. There are 7 or 8 parties. We had a meeting with the committee and just those affected landowners, and that's basically where the project started after we had a pretty good feel as to which way we're headed. Of course, we've had a public meeting, and then we've also had we had a couple hours, or an hour anyways, in front of the planning committee of Grey County a couple weeks ago. It's no, I don't think it comes to surprise of anybody in the room here that the Magwood family does not support this, and that's fair. We've tried to make it as clear as we possibly can that by passing the official plan amendment and tonight the zoning bylaw amendment does not put the proverbial gun to their head, if I can use that expression, in saying you have to develop these lands. It opens the doors up for the respective 7 or 8 landowners to do something with their property, if they care to do something with their property. I don't think anybody on my left here is going to tell the Magwoods that the council is going to tell them they have to develop their lands for commercial purposes. What I'm saying is the farming operation that's existing on the property right now can stay. There's a livestock operation. It can stay. It can continue to be used for that purpose. It's called legal non-conforming use, and under the Planning Act, Ontario law, the Magwoods have the right to continue to farm their land. So there won't be pressure there. In terms of rights being removed from them, if that's going to be your question, I have addressed that in the official plan amendment. And no, they don't right now have the ability to expand their farming operation now in terms of building a new barn or expanding their barn. That was the fact that they're currently zoned A3, which is a restrictive agricultural zone, already says that there are some limitations on your farming operation now, and I'm saying to council tonight that that's not changing. Yes, instead of being zoned A3, they will be zoned C3, which is a highway commercial zone, but at the end of the day, they can continue to farm, and we're not removing, in my mind, any right for them to with regard to farming their property. And the other landowners affected by this all seem to be in support of it. There was nobody, to my knowledge, came out and said they were in opposition to it. Mr. Magwood did attend the county planning committee meeting a couple weeks ago with his lawyer, and she made a presentation, and that's the author of the letter that was sent to Mark later this afternoon. I think we're at the point where we agree to disagree, and it's unfortunate, but we may be very likely headed off to the Ontario Municipal Board. And I am confident that the board will understand that Hanover has done their homework. They need to expand the urban boundaries, not the municipal boundaries, don't get that wrong. And that in this particular case, the Magwoods are not being forced to do anything, and that their right to farm will continue. And it's unfortunate if we have to go that far, but my recommendation is for council to approve the rezoning tonight. Thanks.
Any questions for Ron before we introduce the motion? Bev, Councillor Cunning.
With the designation being changed on the property from A3 to C3, is that going to be an impact on the taxes?
I'm really the wrong person to be asking about taxes. If you turn your head and ask the guy beside the mayor that.
Will they be affected by taxes, do you think?
I'm not a treasurer either, but assessment's based typically on use of the property, so I wouldn't anticipate that changing. But again, I'm not the assessment office and I'm not a treasurer, but that's my understanding, that assessment's based on use.
No, on use. Similar to, and you know, I mean, it's somewhat, you've got a rural designation, you're growing an agricultural crop on it, yeah. And it's in farming, it's a farm tax that's on it, right? Consequently, if you just had a residence on that 100 acres and we're not farming it, it would be at the residential tax rate. And that's the same with this. If it's C3 and it's being in the farming, it would be at the farm tax ratio. Any other questions for Ron on this one before I introduce? Okay. I have a motion moved by David Mollison and seconded by Mark Rapke. Be it resolved that bylaw number 33, 2014, being a bylaw to rezone lands described as part lots 8 to 11, concession 1, SDR, former township of Bentic, Hanover and West Grey secondary plan be now read a third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed with the mayor and the CEO, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Is there any questions on the motion? Councillor Lawrence. Carol?
Well, I was going to ask the same question that Bev was asking. That would be my concern. I'd sure like to be assured that it won't change their tax situation. And am I understanding that it doesn't allow them to expand, but they can't expand now, as far as barns and stuff?
Yeah, that's correct. Again, currently the property is zoned A3. A3 is restricted agriculture, does not permit new barns or the expansion of an existing barn. So whether or not the property remains A3 or we zone it to C3, the barn can stay, but it can't be enlarged. The barn can stay, but it can't be replaced or another one put up. Well, yeah, and I would say that's nothing but good planning. If you have an urban boundary and you have a barn in the urban boundary or a couple hundred meters from it, you want to limit the impact of odor. So you want to make sure that the barns cannot be expanded or new ones constructed.
If a barn burns, can you replace it?
I believe the way West Grey's bylaw, and Mark's nodding, yes. If there's an act of, do they still call it act of God? That's not really fair to God, especially on Easter Monday.
Natural disaster.
Yes, it can be replaced.
I believe it goes specifically to the original footprint. John? Councillor Eccles?
Well, I think my question just got answered. You can refurbish or repair, but just not expand.
Sure. Sorry, that's a good question. Yeah, as with any legal non-conforming use, you have the right to always repair to a safe condition. That definition really is interpreted by the building official. Generally, it does not mean knocking everything down to the foundation and starting from scratch again, basically. But whatever it takes to keep it in good repair, yes, you can do that.
Any further questions or comments? Going to call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? Declare that carried. I hope I got that right. I believe it was 6-3. Okay.
Next two bylaws were recommended for refusal. Maybe we should note that.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of figuring. Why are they here?
Well, we have to deal with it.
Oh, okay.
So we do them in the affirmative in the resolution, but defeat them. in
Okay.
Wisconsin.
All right. The next two bylaws, sorry for the delay there, are dealing with a piece of property in Newstead, and both of them are, were not recommended for approval by the planning committee, but going through to give it legal conforming or confirmation, it has to go through the process here at council. Go ahead, Mark, with any of the details.
So the reason why the West Grey Planning Advisory Committee did not recommend approving these bylaws and then, of course, adopting the official plan is because in Durham and Neustadt, the zoning bylaw and the official plan requires full municipal services. This landowner had submitted an application to allow a dwelling to be built with only municipal water and not municipal sewer. And that it would be in contravention of both the official plan, the West Grey official plan, and the West Grey zoning bylaw. And it was noted that it would not conform to both of those policies by both the municipal planner and the county planner. And therefore, the West Grey Planning Advisory Committee has recommended that council not support these bylaws or the applications.
All right, so we'll hand out the motions. I'm on the table. Anything else, Mark?
And I should also note that I did a pre-consultation with the landowner, Mr. Morley, and I did advise him of that issue, that it wouldn't be supported very likely by the planners, but he had the option to apply anyways, and he chose that option knowing that it may not be approved or may likely not be approved, and that his money for the applications was not refundable as well.
Okay, so I have bylaw number 34. And of this motion moved by Rob Thompson, seconded by John A. Bell. Be it resolved that bylaw number 34, 2014, being a bylaw to adopt amendment number 1 to the Municipality of West Grey official plan relating to lands described as Part Lot 1, Concession 13, former village of Newstead, Morley, be now read a third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the CEO, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Yeah. I read this as it was signed with the mover and seconder. This should be first, second, and third reading, not just third.
Yeah. Yes.
Was the last one was...
Yes, I presume that I didn't.
Okay. So if you will allow me to do kind of a friendly amendment, it's the first, second, and third reading of this. Councillor Rabke.
Sorry, it's not quite clear to me. So is the motion, what's the motion stating? Are we saying that we're,
Yeah,
that's the part I'm struggling with.
Resolutions are typically supposed to be in
favor.
Yeah, in the positive aspect, so if council does not support the motion, they should not basically raise their hands in support of the resolution.
Okay, so it has to be moved, and now, sorry.
Moved and seconded.
I know that I'm out of line here by speaking, but just before you do pass the resolution, and I apologize to Mark, there's some uncertainty as to how this was supposed to happen under the Planning Act. It's confusing, and I asked the Ministry of Municipal Affairs for clarification last week. Mark, this is the part you don't know. When we send out the notice, Mark, when we send out the notice, we're supposed to explain why council refused it. So I don't know if I don't know how that fits into a motion like this, or we just say that I just indicate that it didn't maintain the intent and purpose of the official plan, and I guess we could leave it at that.
Okay?
I will note it in the minutes.
And we can note it in the minutes as to what the reasoning was from staff's recommendation and from the planning committee, that this was turned down at the planning committee. Okay? So let's say that once more, Mark. This was turned down at the planning committee, but still for the purposes, had to be brought forward here for council's either support of what the planning committee is doing or turning the planning committee down. So, all those in favor? Those opposed to the resolution? I'll just say that that is defeated. Following what the planning committee had recommended. The next one was on the rezoning of the aforementioned property. I have a motion moved by Bev Cutting, seconded by David Mollison. Be it resolved that bylaw number 35, 2014, being a bylaw to rezone lands described as Part Lot 1, Concession 13, former village of Newstead, Morley, be now read a first, second, and third time, and passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the CEO, deputy clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any questions or comments on the rezoning bylaw? Don, Councillor Marshall.
And just for the benefit of the three councillors that don't sit on the planning committee, you can see on the map that this lot is at the southerly end of Newstead, up by the water tower. So it's all by itself down there. Oh, sorry, well, four. So this is the sewer stop up somewhere around where the S is in street on Jacob Street there, probably. It's going to cost over $100,000 to run sewers down to that one lot. So I know it's in the official plan, but that's what that amendment was for in the last bylaw, to change that amendment, to change that bylaw and allow this. It just seems like we're taking this last lot out of circulation, and it is a 2-acre or 3-acre lot. If at such times that the land was developed in behind the water tower to the, whatever that'd be, the east, I guess, that lot could be hooked onto sewers when it was run down there. It just seems like we're taking that lot out of circulation. And tonight we did go against our planner on the first bylaw. That bylaw was not recommended by the planner or by Grey County, I believe. And we went against that recommendation, correct? If I'm not correct in that, correct me?
That's correct.
So we do not support our planner all the time, even though we pay him big money.
Mark does.
That is true. The Darrow zoning wasn't supported by the municipal planner or the county planner. However, it did go to county council, and they did support the official plan amendment, or decided not to appeal the decision of this municipality, of the planner. There was a tentative appeal lodged by the county planner on this application, but the council itself.
Planning and county council.
Yeah, planning and county council did not follow through with an appeal.
If I may, then just to add a bit more context, Mark explained it very well. One thing he didn't say, though, was not only are the lands not fully serviced, but they're actually not designated for residential development. Right now, they're designated future development. That's a designation that we applied to lands that aren't serviceable. And if you read the policies of the official plan, and they're in my report, why we have that future development designation, it's for this very reason. The lands aren't close to services or full services, and maybe at some point they will be, and they'll have a better development potential. So rather than taking whatever we have here, a 1 hectare, 1.5 hectare lot that has just water going to it, wait till services are there, and maybe the most efficient use of that property at some point will be several lots. And if you read the official plan, which I remind council, it's brand new, it's less than 2 years old, And there's some good stuff in there, and the goals and objectives of that official plan as it pertains to future development designation are very clear. And council accepted that, the planning committee accepted that yeah, there are parts of Neustadt and parts of Durham that can't be developed in the near future because the services really are nowhere nearby. Yes, you can go against the advice that's been given you and the advice that's recommendation from your committee if you care to do that. I'd just be careful with that. In this particular case, I hate using the term precedent setting because everybody has the right to come in and apply, with their own application. But you got to keep in mind, you've got another individual in Neustadt who's going to be forking over the big bucks to put in this plan of subdivision. And that kind of puts us all in an awkward position, certainly at the staff level and maybe at the political level as well, if we start allowing, a guy to build on a lot, or maybe the next guy is going to be 2 lots when you've got another guy that has to put in infrastructure at about $3,000 a linear meter for water, sewer, and asphalt.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Declare that defeated. Okay. Number 36. Now we're getting away from planning stuff, getting into something that's more understandable. Tax rates. Setting of these things, the estimates. And that's where we're starting here with bylaw number 36, the adoption of estimates and striking of the tax rate. I have a motion moved by Rob Thompson and seconded by John A. Bell. Be it resolved that bylaw number 36, 2014, being a bylaw to provide for the adoption of estimates of all sums required during the year to strike the tax rate and to provide the payment thereof for the year 2014, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the CEO, deputy clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any questions or comments on this motion? Of course, council had their chance to ask questions when the Director of Finance was here, so. Now we have Ron sitting in that at that table. Council had their chance when the Director of Finance was here. Okay. No questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Next one, number 37, is a housekeeping bylaw dealing with the planning and our comprehensive zoning. I don't know whether this is just by coincidence, but in 2006, this bylaw was number 37, 2006. Here we are with the housekeeping, and it's 37 of 2014. Nothing happens by coincidence, right, Mark? I have a motion moved by Mark Rapkin and seconded by Bev Cutting. Be it resolved that bylaw number 37, 2014, being a bylaw to update the West Grade Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw number 37, 2006, as amended, to implement the new official plan for the settlement areas of Durham and Newstead, and to correct certain errors and omissions within the West Grade Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw number 37, 2006, as amended, be now read a first, second, and third time, and passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the CEO, deputy clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any questions or comments on this bylaw, on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. if you want to stay for that discussion on the pits. Okay. And the last one is number 38, is an amendment of our bylaw number 12, 2014. And Mark, do you want to just a little more?
Yes, there was a minor amendment to the bylaw. By coincidence, there's two, I guess, Mary Zettlers in West Gray. One was Mary Teresa Zettler, who's named as Mary Zettler in the existing bylaw in the subcommittee for New Stat. And then there's a new appointee who's happened to be Mary Zettler, and I've determined she is named Mary Alice Zettler, so I did add her name to the volunteer subcommittee.
Okay, there's the explanation. I have a motion moved by David Molson and seconded by Carol Lawrence. Be it resolved that bylaw number 38, 2014, being a bylaw to further amend bylaw number 12, 2014, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed as amended and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the CEO, deputy clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Is there any questions or comments on this? As the old TV show said, would the real Mary Zettler please step forward? Am I dating myself when I'm talking about those television? Okay. Yes, that's what's my line. Very good. All those in favor of the bylaw? Any opposed? That is carried. That's it for bylaws. New business. At our last meeting, I believe the Councillor Marshall had had asked for an introduction of a aggregate resource resolution, and it was put off for more research. Do you want to speak to it?
Speak to it first.
I know, I'll let Don speak to it. Just go ahead, Don.
Yeah, I'd like to bring it forward, but I'm pretty sure the wording of the resolution is not what we'd like to approve, since the Aggregate Act is already opened up, and it states in there that we'd like to open it up. But I think it's important that we start somewhere on this review thing. We just had at the planning meeting, we had quite a discussion on the Cedar Well pit, but the councils cannot rule on the need of aggregate. It's like the 11th commandment, thou shalt not turn down a gravel pit. And need, I just figured out that we have about 4.5 million tons of aggregate in West Gray alone that is licensed can be extracted from West Gray this year and every year thereafter until the gravel pits run dry. It can be. So there's licensed 4.5 million tons. So why would we approve another pit when there's all kinds of gravel that's already licensed? So this is some of the things that should be brought up.
Go ahead, Beth.
Well, it's the exact same legislation, basically, by the provincial government that makes us have to license or have wind turbines. I mean, we don't have the ability in the municipality to stop gravel pits or wind turbines or, water. I mean, there's lots of things that are provincially mandated. Water is one of them and gravel is another, and it seems wind turbines are another. So I agree it's opened up, but if you want to go ahead and do the fight for whatever you think you're going to fight for, then I'm behind you, but I don't it's so frustrating fighting on the one hand for the wind turbines and the Green Energy Act. I can't imagine trying to open up a provincially legislated order and trying to get it changed. I mean, go for it if you want. My fight's in another direction, but
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with you, Bev, that if we're gonna go to the wind turbine issue, I think our fight is with the Ontario government
exactly.
and the wind turbine issue, and we seem to be fighting Nextera. So I think we should be
Well, we're
fighting,
fighting both,
but more Nextera than the province. If we took the 85 or 90 now willing host of wind turbines and went to the province, said, if you do not support some changes in this act, that we're going to put, the next provincial election comes along, we're not having a Liberal sign out in front of our municipal office, we're going to have all of the other party signs out there promoting against use. Because we're the people, we own the province. It's ours, it's not the government's. They just rule it, I guess, but it's ours, and we should take it back.
Okay, can we get back to the gravel issue instead of the more philosophical, Don? John?
Well, I'm going to have to disagree a little with Councillor Cutting. Right now, we do have a little bit of say in aggregate. We have no say in wind turbines. And I think if we go pounding on the door saying we don't like the way you're doing it, that it may go the way of wind turbines where we're just told that, fine, you don't want to deal with it, we'll look after it ourselves. I just as soon have a little bit of control as absolutely none. And I'm afraid of the consequences if we ask the government to look after it.
the only control we really have, though, is to be able to put a holding symbol on something and hours of operation and a few rules like that.
But we can have site plan agreements. Whereas with wind turbines, we've got nothing. So I don't want to poke the cat and end up getting scratched.
One thing that just before, Mark, if I could, Councillor Marshall, you were saying that, you know, through some research, we know that the Aggregate Resource Act is being reviewed and there are some recommendations in there. We're probably getting off into a committee of the whole discussion at this point in time. More of a committee discussion. Would you take the recommendation of taking the resolution back and amending it, revamping it before we lift it from the table for consideration tonight? Under that consideration that, you know, we do know now that the act is being reviewed, and take a look at some of that so that we, from your own words, get some of the right wording into that of where you want to go with this? Okay? Yeah? All right. Not quite yet. All right, so I think Don wants to, instead of lifting it from the table, leave it tabled, but do some work on the motion. Agree to that, Don? Good? Okay, so that's where we'll leave it. Mark, you were going to comment?
Yeah, well, that was something I was going to suggest, but it sounds like that's what we'll talk about. But almost both the things we've been talking about and aggregates, probably the first one, it's outside of the planning process. I mean, we have a planning here. We go through all these, years of work to do things like we passed here tonight, but the aggregate sits outside of that. So I guess something we may want to consider as part of that, Don, is how it would be folded into planning. And also, I think you've mentioned in here, you're talking about cost to the municipality, but I think you're also looking for some benefit to the municipality. Since aggregate is, let's say, a natural resource similar to oil, you do see some of those things. So maybe that's part of the wording you want to look at.
Mr. Turner or Mr. Davidson want to speak
Just
about the
to,
planning aspect?
just to clarify, gravel pits do have to be licensed through the Ministry of Natural Resources, and they do require typically a rezoning unless they're already designated or zoned as such. So it is within the parameters of the Planning Act, and it's within the, I guess, rights of council to decide whether or not to approve as rezoning, but obviously there are fairly tight controls from the province in terms of how you can deny an application if the proponent, gravel pit proponent, does the appropriate reports and they're all positive and they meet all the other criteria. Yes, it makes it difficult for council to not approve a rezoning, but it is definitely within the rights of council to hear the application and make a decision, as opposed to wind turbines, which are, the Green Energy Act really circumvents a lot of the Municipal Act, the Planning Act, and a lot of other acts that typically the municipality may have right to consider as part of that approval.
Okay. So Don, we'll leave that with you and look forward to it coming back. Maybe we can find something at OSM and give us more wording. Any addendum? Sorry, Ron, go ahead.
Yeah, just if I might throw my 2 cents in there, and I know where Councillor Marshall's coming from because we've had a number of gravel pits. He sits on the planning committee, and the bottom line, I think he's heard me say this a few times, is the provinces, you know, they're pro gravel pit, and as Mark indicated, you dot your I's and cross your T's if you're the gravel pit operator or the consultant working for him, and it's difficult for council to refuse it, and if council did refuse it under the current provincial policy statement, that's where I'm going with this. You better have really good reasons to turn it down, because when it goes to the board, not only could you lose, but you might be footing the bill for the whole hearing, and I mean both sides. So I'm not sure how this was worded, but I would presume, Councillor Marshall, it is a motion directed towards the province to rethink things? Is that, yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, and I guess the only thing I have to say to that is I'm going to guess there are other municipalities out there that likely feel the same way, so you might have some support. The difficult thing is the province just released their brand new provincial policy statement, and the ink isn't even dry yet. I don't mean literally, but it comes into effect in 7 or 8 days. And it stands behind the old provincial policy statement, which makes it very clear that the municipality or the approval authority cannot base their decision on a gravel pit on the need for the resource. So, and that's what guides me. And that's why, you know, I'm here supporting most gravel pits, because they've dotted their I's and crossed their T's. So you can have a bit of a fight on your hands. But again, I think you'll have some other municipalities out there that might be interested in backing you on that. Just what I hear.
Don, and then Carol.
Just going to the provincial policy statement, if no councillor has read that's a good read. And they do not, as far as planning goes, I don't think the province is following the provincial policy statement to the letter. And one is that the gravel companies are supposed to use aggregate that's closest to the job site. So they drive by their competitors' gravel pit to drive to their own, whether it be 5 miles or 20 miles, back and forth. And the gravel pit proponent the other day said, well, that's maybe not what the interpretation of that was. But it should be. Is that if they're burning 5 more gallons of fuel to haul gravel from their pit, then the provincial policy statement should say, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to save our fuel. We're going to save our non-renewable resource, fuel, to truck gravel a shorter distance. And there's lots of environmental stuff in there in that provincial policy statement. And they only follow environmental stuff when the economy is booming. If the economy suffers, then the environmental stuff will get thrown out to make the economy move ahead. It seems in that provincial policy statement. But they do mention environmental in there a lot.
Okay. Carol.
I'd just like to ask Councillor Marshall to, if you're reviewing this, that you look at your last whereas. I personally couldn't vote for this with that in there, which saying that we as West Grey, we acknowledge that private business and landowners are the main beneficiary. That's private enterprise. I mean, you know, I really have trouble supporting that. It's true, but that's the way it is. I own the land, it's got gravel, I'm gonna benefit from it. And you're saying that we acknowledge that it's private business and landowners are the main beneficiary. Well, yeah, they are. They own it. And as I say, that's private enterprise.
Now, I hear what you're saying. But if that was water, and they were taking it out of the ground at 1 million gallons a day, is that private? Should that be private? That's, yeah. If they start at 89 Highway and take 30 feet of gravel out from there to Owen Sound someday, I don't think it's right. I think the kids of the future deserve better than that. We're here to fight for that future generation and not leave them a mess, because that gravel is our filter of our natural water source. And if we take 30 feet of gravel out down to the water table, the filter's gone. Uh-oh, I've stirred the hornet's nest.
We're going to go to Mr. Eccles, and then I think we're going to call this debate to an, he's going to have the last talk on it. John?
The gravel, I can't remember the name of them, the Association of Gravel Pit Interests have lobbied for years and years and years to the provincial government to recycle aggregate. You drive down the 401 into Toronto and there is thousands and thousands and thousands of tons of aggregate sitting there to be recycled, and then the Ministry of Transport says they're not going to use recycled aggregate anymore. The provincial government has as big a problem as anything in their own statements. The best we can do is look after our aggregate the best we can and let the provincial government fiddle around and do what they want. I'm not sure that this is going to solve the problem of aggregate resources and how we deal with them. Sorry.
Thank you. The CEO wants to get in on this. Go ahead, Larry.
Very
We
short.
haven't
Thank
heard
you.
from staff
Thank you, Your
much.
Worship. Just as a reminder for background information for council in this, I provided council with some background information on the Cornerstone Standards Council. That's the group, the aggregate producers and the aggregate producing municipalities got together and put together a draft standards, which they submitted to the standing committee of the province, and the government did a response to that. I provided that information to council on March 17th, and prior to going ahead with many more discussions, I would urge you to just take a browse through that, at least the executive summary, to provide you just some additional background on where they stand and where they were going with it. So, thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, thanks, Larry. And if anybody else out there that's watching tomorrow or the next day, West Grey Council meeting, I suggest you come next Monday to Committee of the Whole, and we'll re-engage this philosophical conversation on the direction of Ontario as a province going forward. Any addendums? Notice a motion or direct motions? Seeing none, we don't have any need for a closed session going forward. Question period. Anyone got any questions out there in the audience? We offer this as a point in time for that, whether it be on municipal planning or green energy or anything else that you're looking forward to. Oh, so that, yes, it does have to be on the agenda. You'll probably ask me off camera anyways, Don. Okay. Nothing else. I'll look for a motion. There's no municipal act notices, Mark. Need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Mollison moves that we adjourn. We'll stand adjourned until May the 5th, or unless we have to call another meeting. Thank you very much.